Most of the research going on herbalism is not research into the herbalism that we do. It's research into basically organic green drug delivery systems. Ways in which the therapeutic potential of herbs can be harnessed by mainstream medicine. Now, it's really fascinating stuff if you're into that stuff. It's not an improvement on herbalism, and it rarely actually has any insights for us. The real need at the moment is not more research, it's more focused, appropriate research. There needs to be a linking up of the people with the research skills, the statisticians, the people who know how to do IRBs, all of that stuff, with herbalists who actually know how to use the herbs in the real world. St. John's wort as an antidepressant. 10, 12 years ago, you would have found hardly anybody in the herb world. In fact, nobody in England, maybe some people here, few people in Germany, but not very many, who would have said you could use St. John's wort as an antidepressant. What we were using it for was, in the language, it was a tropho-restorative for the nervous system, a wonderful tonic, anti-inflammatory for the nervous system, a wound healer for the nervous system, and a very useful anxiolytic, good relaxing nervine. As soon as the first paper came out from Germany about, actually not very dramatic findings, but enough to be slightly statistically significant in mild to moderate depression, whatever that is. Whole bunch of herbalists in this country started using St. John's wort as an antidepressant, and you can ask just about anybody in this conference, and most people in the street, what St. John's wort is about, and they'll say an antidepressant. What happened? Why did we do that? It may help mild to moderate depression because it's an anxiolytic. Raise the spirits by easing the depression. My point is, we have allowed, in the St. John's wort case, we've allowed ourselves to be manipulated out of the insights our body of knowledge has by news reports, by the people in the street learning this. And if they heard it from the news, then maybe it's true. I mean, we should know by now if it's on the news, it's disinformation. Do any of you remember that it was there was hardly any news that week, and suddenly all over the place, St. John's wort was going to stop contraceptive pills working. That was based on a little bit of laboratory information. St. John's wort contains constituents which do affect the enzymes which do metabolize the birth control pill. And theoretically it could be a problem. But St. John's wort is one of the most widely used herbs in Central and Northern Europe, and has been for hundreds, maybe thousands of years. Used at really quite high levels for a whole range of things. If there was any clinical reality to St. John's wort affecting contraceptive use, the German epidemiologists would have identified it years ago. But a scientist, a toxicologist said, danger. You can't do that with drugs. You have to find a bit of science to hint at a problem, and then you have to marry that with clinical findings and epidemiological findings before you act on it. When it comes to herbalism, all it seems to need is a scientist to make a statement, and we back off. Terrible mistake.
Hello, everyone. I agree with Howie that I don't have a favorite plant. I don't have a favorite anything, really. I don't have a favorite food, a favorite color. However, there is one thing I have a favorite of. I currently, and as he says, these change, but I currently have a favorite friend. And he claims that, when people have asked me this before, that I do have a favorite plant, because he said there isn't anything I won't use it for. So since I don't feel like I have one, I'll tell you about it. And that's Hypericum, or St. John's wort. And the reason that I use it for everything is that it just seems to be good for everything. And it's also very prevalent. It's all over the place. It's easy to get a hold of. Probably the first thing that I like about this plant is it's such a joyous plant. It's such a beautiful plant when it's flowering. It just shines, and as it's radiating, it makes everyone around it feel really happy to be around it. Next, when you touch it and you ruffle its leaves up, it smells incredible. It has the smell that when you take it in deep into your lungs, and I see Victoria nodding here, yes. But when you take it deep into your lungs, it fills you, and I'm not even sure what it exactly fills me with, but it fills me with some sort of a really joyous and peaceful feeling. I just go, this is nice. And as far as using it, my goodness, the oil can be used in just about every orifice of your body. Well, it can in every orifice of your body. And then from your mouth to your anus, it's just an incredible fresh plant oil and wonderful vulnerary. And then as far as a fresh plant tincture, it's wonderful to use internally. It's a great nervine. And although I know that people use it a lot for depression, that's probably one of the least ways I've used it. But I did have an experience with the plant where it told me a really interesting thing that I'd like to pass on to you. And that is that it's a plant that helps so much with depression because it helps people to recognize a lack of community. It's a plant that really needs community around. If you've ever tried to grow it as a row crop, you find out real quickly that it doesn't make it. It gets attacked by what we call the Klamath beetle around here, and it eats it right down to the nubs and even will eat the roots up. And so this is a plant that has to have community. It has to have other plants around it, Queen Anne's lace, plantain. It really needs that community. And when it doesn't have it, it gets sick. Well, what it said is that it helps people recognize that in themselves. There is a problem right now on our planet where people don't have community like they used to. People feel very distant from each other. They don't know their neighbors. Their families no longer stay together. And this plant helps people recognize that they need community and that this is where their feeling of depression is coming from. So this is a really helpful plant to heal our planet. So I really like this herb, although I still claim it is not my favorite herb. Thanks.
I am disabled, as you can see, and I am here to get some good information about things that will help me get better. When my wonderful neurologist says they've developed a lot of drugs for the nervous system, none of them work very well. From a neurologist, he's practiced for 50 years with a resume 17 pages long. And I have found in my healing that plants have helped me tremendously. They just have. And so I just am always interested in different plants that will actually work and do something to help me get better. For me, St. John's wort helped me the most. Oh, it helped me. You know how when you get a sunburn, you know what your nerves feel like? Yeah. Just dinged. And, well, the St. John's wort, when you put that on a sunburn, it just helps. It just, so that when the nerves are just dinged and unhappy, it makes them happy. And I use St. John's wort a lot.
You used the tincture?
Tincture and oil. I put the oil all on the lower half of my body because that's the part that is nerves there are dinged, are badly dinged, very badly dinged. I was in a car accident, I broke my neck and 2 lumbars, and I have a closed head injury, so I have massive neurological damage on every level. And the St. John's wort has made my nerves very much happier. I have to say I got a photosensitivity from it.
Oh, you did?
And that's a topic that isn't discussed at these conferences very much, and I'd like it to be. I got photosensitivity from it. But I highly recommend it. It's a really wonderful plant.
So we've been talking before about Hypericum perforatum, St. John's wort or St. John's wort. If you're not familiar with that plant, here it is growing right here. It's not in flower. Of course, it's easiest to recognize when it's flowering, so it has beautiful yellow flowers. But we need to be able to recognize the plants when they are not flowering. And the easiest way to recognize this plant is to take one leaf from it and hold that leaf near where it touched the stem. So the opposite end that I'm holding it. Now hold it up to the brightness of the sky and tell us what you see, Elizabeth.
Dots.
Dots or?
Spaces.
Spaces,
Right.
little perforations.
Oh, perforatum.
Perforatum, yes. We make a tincture from the flowering top of Hypericum perforatum, and we make an oil from the flowering top of Hypericum perforatum. Since this is such a safe and effective remedy, especially in tincture form, then I like to start people out who are experiencing headache pain, shoulder and neck pain, joint pain, any kind of muscle pain, fibromyalgia pain, all right? Just plain pain from working hard, all right? These are the kinds of things I say, some Hypericum tincture. I was walking out to my car one afternoon. I was about to drive down to the city to teach at the Open Center. And a few steps into my walk in the car, there was suddenly this searing pain in my left hip with shooting electrical energy going down my left leg, making it almost impossible for me to walk. What is that? Sciatica, right? So something shifted in my back and it clamped down on the sciatic nerve and wham, there it is. So I limped back in the house. I got my bottle of Hypericum tincture. I already had some water. I got in the car. I took a dropper full of Hypericum tincture with some water. And I took a dropper full of Hypericum tincture every 15 minutes. It took me a little over 2 hours to get down to the Open Center from here. So that was 9 doses. I was taking it every 15 minutes. I parked about 5 blocks away, was able to walk the 5 blocks completely pain-free, stand up and give a 3-hour talk without a moment of pain, and in fact was never bothered by that sciatica ever again in my life. I have friends who run marathons and they put Hypericum tincture in their water bottle and they swear they never get a single cramp or Charlie horse for the entire marathon. Plus, there's no muscle pain after running. All right, if you do a yoga class or any other heavy exercise, a dropper full of Hypericum tincture before or after you exercise. Hypericum goes even further. It's antiviral. It is one of the most effective antiviral plants that I have ever worked with, but especially focuses on the nerves. So are there any problems that we might encounter which would arise from having a virus in the nerves? Yeah. Shingles. Shingles, yes, absolutely. Shingles is a virus that's in the nerve ending. So I was teaching a class, oh, gracious goodness, over 30 years ago. And it was an ongoing class. And one of the students was a little hyper. And so when she stood up in the middle of class and started screaming, we didn't pay a lot of attention to her because she was kind of that kind of student. But when she started pulling her clothes off, we paid more attention to her. And if you wanted to believe in devils or evil, that would have been the time to do it. She pulled her shirt up, and from her belly button to her side was a red streak, and as you watched that red streak, it looked like some unseen hand was lashing her. It would like pulse red, and then red, and half the class is going, wow, and the other half of the class is going, all right. And the half of the class is going, wow, saying we've never seen shingles breaking out. We always see it when they come with the shingles. So what did I happen to be talking about in class that night? Hypericum perforatum. The world is so perfect, isn't it? So I said, put this oil on, right now, and then I throw the bottle of tincture, and I said, and take a dropper full of this now, and then another before you go to sleep, and another in the morning, and just keep the remedies with you and use them as you need and bring them back to me next week. Well, she came back next week, picked up her shirt, and there was nothing at all on her belly. And she told us that she had had the shingles for 36 hours. Is that how shingles goes? How does shingles usually progress? You break it out and it's painful for
Several weeks.
weeks at least, months, sometimes
There's no
years.
thing,
And it's very difficult to deal with. The drugs, the cyclovir, is not great. All right? So yes, we got it right away. You know, but I was approached by a woman who had head shingles here, which is a scary place to get it because it can get into the optic nerve and cause blindness. 25 years previously, she did not have the shingles, but she still had pain. All right, because it gets into the nerve and it can cause neuralgias, which is nerve pains for a long, long time. I suggested that she use some Hypericum oil. She said she put it on 3 times and the pain was completely gone. She stayed in touch with me for about 12 years and the pain did not return for any part of that time.
This beautiful yellow flowering plant is St. John's wort. And St. John's wort is known for helping to diminish pain. So it can be used both externally on the skin or on the nervous tissues, the muscles, or in the ear to diminish pain. I mentioned earlier that you can mix Phytolacca poke root and calendula oil and garlic oil and mullein flower oil and Hypericum oil or St. John's wort oil to help to diminish the pain of ear infection. Many people think about this plant as a plant used in the nervous system to help to aid with depression. But traditionally this plant was also used in respiratory illnesses, particularly as an antispasmodic. I do like to use it as an antispasmodic in teas and as a tincture for menstrual spasms, spasms of the colon, the stomach, as well as the lungs. So it does make a lovely tea to use in the winter along with your mullein and your thyme and eucalyptus as a lung tea to help with diminishing cough and mucus. And then, as I said earlier, for an ear oil, but also as a topical plant in salves and creams. So we're going to be making oils from this. The oil will be beautiful red color that comes from the oil that's found in this flower. And then we'll be using those oils, some in salves, in which will be used to be put on the skin, and others directly as oils for massage oil, as well as the ear oil, and then for lymphatic oil. So mixed with the poke and used over lymph glands, tonsillitis, rubbed around the neck here, and put a warm cloth and allow that to diminish the irritation, inflammation that happens when a child has tonsillitis or sore throat.